All right, folks, welcome. I'm gonna mute everyone for now. All right. So just a reminder that we have a lot of people in the room tonight, so please do, unless you are speaking during the program, please just keep your mics muted for the time being, and then there may be an opportunity to speak up later when we get to the questions portion. So we're going to get started in just a minute or so. We're going to give folks another minute to get in. So in the meantime, we have a question for you. How many ductless heat pump installations do you think there have been in the Pacific Northwest since 2008? All right, so put your answer, you put your guesses, unless you know the answer. You could put the answer in, but don't give it away if you actually know. Put your guesses in the chat. How many ductless heat pump installations do you think there have been in the Pacific Northwest since 2008? And we want to see some guesses. All right, I see things in the chat. What do we got? Oh, I can't even follow all these numbers. 15,000, 1576. I like the specificity. 99,999, 20,000, 20,000. Yeah, well, we're all over the map. They're mostly pretty high numbers. I don't see any low numbers. No idea. That would be me. I'm in that camp. 2,500. I guess between 1 and a million. And I don't want, spoiler alert, but I was told that I was correct. So, so y'all know it's somewhere in there. Those are some excellent guesses. Well, we're going to get the answer later, but not quite yet. So let's go ahead and jump in. Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Wittenberg. I'm the Executive Director of Third Place Commons, and I'm happy to have you all here with us this evening for Heat Pump Basics. We are joined tonight by Daniel Poppe of Spark Northwest, and this program is presented by the people, or the Lake Forest Park People for Climate Action. I think I might have my LFP backwards there. And we're happy to have you all with us tonight. Before we jump in, I want to tell you very quickly a little about what's coming up with Third Place Commons. For those of you who don't know, we are a community-supported nonprofit organization in the town center at Lake Forest Park. We're right next door to Third Place Books. We're not Third Place Books. We love them. We love them. We love them. But we're a separate organization, and we host lots of events, including now a hybrid of both live in-person events and virtual events like tonight. And one of the big events that's coming up is the holiday, the Thanksgiving Farmers Market and Crafts Fair this coming Sunday. So that's always a big affair, and well, you can do all your great holiday shopping, your early sort of shopping ahead of Black Friday for gifts, but also, of course, all of your Thanksgiving feast and family dinner kind of shopping. Have lots of goodies and lots of very popular vendors. All the folks you love will be there. And so that's on Sunday, and we hope you'll join us for that. And then we do have another one coming up on December 19th. So we have one more coming in December. We also have weekend music back in our in-person category. We do have live music every weekend. Right now, it's on Saturday and Sundays in the afternoon from 3 to 5 through November. And then in December, we're moving back to evening. So we'll be back on Friday and Saturday nights in December. So we hope you'll come and join us for all of our live music and just enjoy it. We can't do that. We have to do masks, and we're not doing dancing yet, but we have fabulous music, and we want you there as part of our community. And we do also have an event coming up this Saturday, which is Neighbors Helping Neighbors, Aging Well in Your Own Home. And that is presented by the Northwest Neighbors Network. And that's all about sort of resources that are available to you if you are seeking to age well in your own home, to age in place, or if you have family and folks that you care about who you want to support in doing that. So join us for that. And then another event geared toward our senior community. We have our Medicare 101 session number 2, which is coming up on December 1st. And that's a great, just a very, very straightforward explanation of Medicare and the different plans, and sort of a real understanding of what of a pretty complicated subject. So it's very, very much about straight talk and not and definitely not sales. It's really just helping you understand. So we'd love for you to join us for that if that's something of use for you. And of course, you can register for any of these. You can find out more information about any of these programs and other programs by visiting us on our social media or on our website. We have information about all of them on our calendar. So here are the places you can find us, and we can share this again at the end of the night if you would like to find us. And with that, I am going to stop talking, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark Phillips with the the Lake Forest Park People for Climate Action. And Mark?
I'm here. I'm ready.
Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So Mark Phillips here. I am a member of the Lake Forest Park chapter of People for Climate Action. I believe there's something like 10 or 12 cities now in King County that have organizations, chapters of People for Climate Action. And our mission is pretty simple. It's to enable the cities in King County to assist the county itself in achieving its ambitious greenhouse gas reduction goals. So we're working with the cities where we have groups like us that are working. Those goals in brief include reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% in the next decade, and by, I believe, 80% by 2050. So that's our mission and our purpose. So we know that that one of the major sources of greenhouse gas emissions is buildings. It accounts for more than 50% in most communities. And it has to do with how we heat the space that we live in those buildings. And interesting to me, surprisingly, I was surprised that the energy that's involved in heating water that we use on a daily basis can be more than 10% of those greenhouse gas emissions for a community. So we're in Lake Forest Park, organized this event. I know there are people from a wider area who are attending, but for us in Lake Forest Park, that building component is especially important. It's homes. We're largely a residential community here. So we're thinking about ways that we can encourage our community to cut greenhouse gas emissions in terms of our homes. And that took us to heat pumps, and especially to ductless heat pumps as a way to do that. When that conversation took us to Spark Northwest, which is an organization you'll hear more about here in a minute. And they have a lot of experience with helping communities organize solarize campaigns, as well as heat pump incentive programs in communities. So that's where we are. And then in the course of that, we met our presenter tonight, Daniel Poppe. So I'm just going to have a quick little introduction for Daniel, and he'll have a presentation for us. So Daniel is the Communications and Development Director for Spark Northwest, a clean energy nonprofit serving communities across Oregon and Washington. And in that role, he helps educate diverse communities about the benefits of clean energy and energy efficiency. Before joining Spark Northwest, Daniel worked in salmon and steelhead recovery with the Seattle-based nonprofit Long Live the Kings. He also spent 2 years at the Cascade Bicycle Club Education Foundation, building support for local bicycling programs. Daniel received a BA in political science from the University of British Columbia and an MPA from the University of Washington, the Evans School for Public Policy and Governance, with a focus on environmental management. Daniel served in the US Peace Corps in China, and he lives in West Seattle with his wife, daughter, and border collie, Coriander. So Daniel, thank you for being here tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate that. And yeah, now everyone knows everything there is to know about me. That's pretty much the whole story there. I'm really excited and very thankful to everybody for coming tonight. And I'm so appreciative of Mark and of Amy, of People for Climate Action and Third Place Commons for inviting me and letting Spark Northwest talk a little bit about this, which is a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. So if you have any questions at any time throughout this, please just throw them in the chat, and we'll try to make sure we get to everybody's questions at the end. I'll try and keep the presentation part short so that we can get to the question and answer portion. If you do have a question that you want to ask then too, we will also just open it up for Q&A at that point. But in the meantime, feel free to throw them into the chat. Mark, if you think that there's a question there that is pertinent to a particular slide that we're on, let me know, and feel free to jump in, and we'll get those questions answered for everybody. So just a little bit about us. Mark introduced People for Climate Action. Amy introduced Third Place Commons. But Spark Northwest is focused on locally controlled, affordable clean energy. And what that means for us is that the shift, the clean energy transition is fully underway. I'm sure everyone here has, sees a million stories a day about, whether it's electric cars or solar roofs or ductless heat pumps or whatever it may be. That transition is happening, and it's happening at a really rapid pace. And our focus as an organization is ensuring that the communities that so often are left out of these big technological shifts don't get left behind in the clean energy transition, which is why we focus on helping low-income communities, tribes, local governments, BIPOC communities, in helping them access all of the benefits of clean energy that so often they have been excluded from in the past. We also work at advocating for legislation and public policy that is going to build access to these clean energy resources for the folks in the communities that we want to serve. So we're a really cool organization. You can check us out at sparknorthwest.org. We've been around since 20 years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary about 3 weeks ago. So we've been doing a lot recently, and you can read some of the stories of the impact of our work there. I'm also joined tonight by Linda Irvine, who is our program director for Spark Northwest. So she's the big kahuna in charge of all of our programs, both in Washington and in Oregon. So she's here to also help answer any questions that you may have that I might not be able to answer. So what we're going to cover today are ductless heat pumps, kind of an introduction to the technology, the savings of ductless heat pumps and how those stack up against other systems, and what financial incentives there are. I will just give you a little note that the financial incentives aren't great, which leads me back to that public policy part, that we can all work on advocating for better public policy that allows for more incentives, both for ductless heat pumps and other clean energy resources. So let's jump into it. So a heat pump, basically, you've probably seen a bunch of heat pumps. Everyone here has a heat pump in their home in the form of your refrigerator. And basically it's an air conditioner that can be run in reverse. So you're providing indoor cooling in the summer and providing heat in the winter. And basically what you're doing is moving the warm air, either from, in the case of cooling your home, you're moving the warm air from in your home to outside of your home, or you're moving the warm air from outside your home to inside your home. It's a pretty incredible technology. If you use the refrigerator as sort of an example, that it's cool on the inside, but if you were to feel around sort of the back of your refrigerator where the coils are, you would feel that it's very warm back there. And that's because of that heat transfer that's happening between those two. So heat pumps are they're a pretty tried and true technology, and they just haven't been applied to home heating and cooling in a major way in the US until now. And we actually have seen these become more popular in other places in the world. As Mark mentioned, I lived in China for a little while, and there ductless heat pump is called a kongtiao, and it's used for both heating and cooling homes, but they're very, very popular there. And so it's a very cool technology, and it's a unique and new way to heat your home in a very also efficient way to heat and cool your home. So in answer to the question that we all threw in the chat, I believe, was it Joseph Weiler? I think Joseph got the closest, and it was, he guessed 200,000. It's more than 160,000 ductless heat pumps have been installed in the Pacific Northwest since 2008. Which is the equivalent of 2.6 megawatts of power plant installation that's been avoided. So that's a pretty fun figure. They are becoming extremely popular. I'm sure that a big part of the reason why we have over 100 people in attendance tonight is because of the heat wave that we had this summer, and the fact that everybody is looking at ways to both heat and cool their homes at the same time. I live in an old, like a 100-year-old Seattle house, and it was not made with air conditioning in mind, because that was not a consideration 30 years ago, let alone 100 years ago. So, ductless heat pumps are a very efficient electric heating and cooling solution, and they use only about half of the energy of traditional electric heating.
It's a big commercial, I think.
Yeah. So, make sure you're putting your mute on your Zoom, just and then we'll make sure that we can get to questions in the end. So people often ask us, okay, why ductless heat pumps? Well, they offer comfort. It's heating and cooling in one system, and it's very steady comfort control. So rather than having, as in the case of a gas furnace where it cycles on and cycles off, you don't have that. You have variable speed control that allows for just the right flow of heat and cool to maintain comfort 24/7. So they're really, really fantastic in terms of keeping you feeling like kind of a constant level of comfort and not having the hot and cold zones. They can be very, very quiet. The new ductless heat pumps are just whisper quiet. They don't have that louder sound that you may have heard in the past. And they're incredibly efficient. They're up to 3 times more efficient than traditional heating sources like oil or gas. There's no duct work. So if you live in a place that doesn't have the space for duct work, or if you don't have existing duct work, then you don't have to worry about it. It's not something that needs duct work to work. And you're also maximizing the efficiency of the heating system because you lose a lot of your heat and cool air through leaky duct work, and as it has to travel throughout your house. So by having a system that actually has a built-in fan that is moving the hot air or the cold air through your home, you have a more consistent kind of heating than you would with, say, like baseboard electric heat. And they can also heat and cool different zones in your house as needed, and depending on kind of what installation you've gone for. So they're also very simple. It's a pretty quick installation. They have a very long lifespan. We've averaged the lifespan to be north of 20 years for a system like this. So they're very, they're going to last a long time, and they require very little maintenance. And the maintenance that they do require can be done by the owner. So, with rebates and upgrading from electric, it's very economical. But even without rebates, fuel oil and propane are so expensive that it often makes sense just to switch anyway. So, but if you do switch from fossil gas, it may not pay back as quickly, because you don't get a rebate. But there may be other reasons to go ductless, like stopping climate change, which I'm sure is also a big consideration for folks here. So just to kind of describe the 3 components of your basic ductless heat pump, you have these 3 parts. The indoor unit, which is called the head. You may have more than one of these on any given system. You also have the outdoor unit, which is the part that's, the air is moving out to, and then you have the remote control. So usually with the head, you have that mounted either high up on a wall, or there might be one that, you can have it mounted near the floor, although it's usually, they call it floor mounted, but really it's just sort of against a wall at floor height as opposed to up at like ceiling height. And you can even have them attached to the ceiling as well. So there's a bunch of different ways to, install the head. And for the outdoor unit, you can have, you just have the one outdoor unit, even if you have multiple heads in the home. And, it's pretty low profile, but I think that it can be a really, it doesn't take a lot out of your, property to have one there. And every unit comes standard with a remote, so that you're not having to, go to a different room or whatever to adjust the heat. You can just, use the remote from anywhere that you can see the indoor head. Or if you have multiple heads in your room, usually it's just one remote that you take from one room to the other that can all be used to adjust for those. So I just thought it might be kind of fun to see what one of these looks like in real life. So I'm actually going to stop screen sharing just for a second and highlight my colleague here, Linda. And Linda is a solar and energy efficiency expert. And Linda, you're actually on mute, but can you show us a little bit of your system?
Yeah, I can actually. So I live in a 1970s home that has kind of an open floor plan, and that is the indoor head. And it's the only indoor head I have. I don't know if you can see that, but it is definitely providing heating on this very cold day outside. My house lost electrical power for 31 hours. In fact, we were in a PSE blackout yesterday. So with no heat, it got down to about 55 inside. And now this heat pump has been pumping since last night and valiantly trying to get us back up to about 65. And yeah, that's the head in our house. And this is my remote control. I don't know if you can see that, but this is what I use to set the temperature up or down, and it works great.
Thanks so much, Linda. I appreciate you showing us that. And if anyone has any questions specifically for Linda or about how her system works for her, please either throw them in the chat or we'll be happy to answer those questions at the end of the presentation. So back to the screen share here. So how does it work? Well, basically, you can see from this diagram that this shows how the outdoor and indoor units connect. They connect through the wall, and on the outside, it really looks like looks mostly like a downspout, like you would have from your gutters. And the heat transfer fluid, which can be hot in winter and cold in the summer, it flows in a pipe from the outdoor unit back into the indoor unit. So you see the outside of the pipe is covered with a sleeve that looks a lot like a downspout. And as it enters in your house in a small hole, that hole is directly behind the indoor head. So these ductless heat pumps are more efficient at heating evenly. So you get less hot and cold spots than you would if you had, say, like baseboard heat. And you can see the first image on the right there is of baseboard heat. Because there's not really a fan that's pumping from baseboard heat, you don't get that distribution of warm or cool air in the other parts of your home. But it really matches how a lot of people set the zones for their house anyway. So if you already have like kind of climate control on a room by room basis, most people, and this is not everyone, but most people tend to like to have the heat beyond in the places where they spend most of their time during the day, whether that's the living room or your office or wherever that might be. And then if you have bedrooms, then people typically like to have those be a little cooler for ease of sleeping purposes. That's not everybody, it totally depends on your what works for you, but it does kind of tend to match up with how people like to set their temperatures anyway, which is kind of nice. Of course, you can always have multiple heads in the home if you want to have, say, one at the back of the house and then one at the front of the house, and that that makes it easy to just even have more control than you do already. So I wanted to just kind of talk also about the different types of heating that we see. There's there's a lot of different ways that people end up heating their homes, and there's we kind of break it down by sort of technology, but also by fuel source. So we're sort of looking at a mix here of both the technology and the fuel source. So we categorize the fuel sources like electric, fossil gas, or other. And the other might be like oil, propane, or wood, or something like that. But each fuel source, there are different ways to deliver the heat in the form of the technology. So electric heating includes, baseboards, forced air furnaces, and both ductless and ducted heat pumps, because you can have a heat pump that works in some ways the same as a furnace does in terms of like creating warm or cool air and then pushing that through your ductwork. Fossil gas includes, furnaces and boilers, and then the boiler might be radiant or hydronic heating. So just kind of out of curiosity, and then there's, of course, these others, whether it's an oil furnace or boiler or propane furnace or boiler, or some people even use wood or pellet stoves. Just, throw in the chat for a second, do you know what you're currently using? Are you using electricity? Are you using fossil gas, like, or are you using propane or what? Just kind of curious of like what folks currently are using. gas, oil, forced air, natural gas and electric. Yeah, we see a lot of mixed, mixed technologies too, or mixed fuel sources. A ducted heat pump. Okay. Yeah. Well, great. Yeah, it's really interesting. I see a lot of natural gas, and that's pretty common up here for folks to have natural gas be one of their primary heating, especially because for a lot of folks in Lake Forest Park, if PSE is your utility, then natural gas is a pretty common, or sorry, fossil gas. Boy, they've really built it into our language. We're trying to break from that, but yeah, the fossil gas is a big and pretty common heating source. Multiple ducted heat pumps. I'm really interested in hearing from folks a little later on about, what brought them to this presentation, if they're already using, ducted heat pumps versus, other forms of heating.
Hey, Daniel, it's Mark. There seem to be some related questions in the chat that maybe are related to the topic you're on now.
Sure.
There's several people who have talked about wanting to replace their forced air fossil fuel systems, and keeping the existing ductwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about, what that can look like. If you do have ductwork in your house, then you can just switch to a ducted heat pump. I don't know that you would use ducted. I mean, once you have the ductwork already in place, I don't know that then you would add heads to that. And Linda, feel free to jump in if I'm misrepresenting this here, but I think you would probably usually either have, a ducted heat pump, or you would do ductless heat pumps. I haven't heard of people doing a mix, although we do know that sometimes people will, say keep electric baseboard heat in their home for the farther back rooms, and then they'll have the ductless heat pump in the main room, and that's their primary energy source. But when things get really cold or whatever, they can have a backup, or even having like an older furnace that can still function, but they're not using. And also, I just wanted to add that this is being recorded, so we can definitely this will be shared out by Amy and all of her team later on. So if anyone wants to come back and revisit this, for sure. Okay, well, we'll try to answer more of these questions as we go along. In the meantime, I wanted to show just kind of this example. This is from the Northwest Ductless Heat Pump Project, which is a part of the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. And basically, this chart shows the relative cost of heating your home using different heating types. So you can note that these numbers are based on like an average fuel cost in the Northwest. So your exact cost may vary somewhat, because I'm sure people might look at this and go, well, that's not exactly what I'm paying, but it can vary. But ductless heat pumps are in the middle here, and they're circled in red. And you can see that the ductless heat pump is the cheapest source of heat. So ducted heat pumps come in a close second. So I hope that also kind of answers that question about, what, whether or not you might want to choose to do that versus something else. If you have the ductwork, a ducted heat pump can be a really good solution for you. But, you do lose a little efficiency with a ducted heat pump system, because like I said before, it has to the air has to travel through that leaky ductwork. And, even if it's not that leaky, it still loses some of its heat or cold in the process of traveling that distance. And so that can just, that can run down the efficiency a little bit, which is why that tends to have, a slightly higher cost associated with it. I also should point out, when we say per million BTUs, that's British thermal units, and that's just the way that we measure, heat energy. I just feel like I should put that in there just in case anyone is seeing that acronym for the first time. So fossil gas is also, it's pretty cheap, and depending on the efficiency of your furnace, and a high efficiency furnace could be like 95% plus efficiency. And fuel oil and propane tend to be like the more sort of expensive side of things. So, these are just the numbers that are just the cost to operate, and it's not the cost of equipment and installation. So you have to consider, whether the upfront cost of, switching over to a new heating and cooling system is going to pay off over time. I'll point out that, a lot of these other systems don't necessarily have that built-in cooling aspect in the same way that either ducted heat pumps or ductless heat pumps have. So, if you're considering thinking, okay, well, should I just get a new gas furnace or should I get a ductless heat pump? Your gas furnace is probably not going to have any kind of air conditioning component. And as we do get into hotter and hotter temperatures, that could be a consideration too. So that leads me to who should get a ductless heat pump? And there are some very compelling reasons for why you might consider going with ductless heat pumps. And if you currently have a ducted system, either electric or gas, you may want to merely displace rather than replace your current heat. I saw somebody ask about this. So in that case, what you're doing is it's easy to just add a ductless system to heat and cool a central part of your home, but you can leave your other system intact and use that to back things up as needed to be. And so just as a side note too, if you're looking to replace an existing ducted system, you probably want to look at a central heat pump, because they can use your existing ductwork and it'll deliver heating and cooling. And central heat pumps like ductless heat pumps are pretty high efficiency, like we saw in the last one. So if you're trying to replace an existing heating system, if you don't want to install ductwork, if you're adding a room to your home, or if you're living in any kind of space that's a little bit more open, that tends to be the perfect spot for a ductless heat pump, because if you have a more open floor plan, that's really great, and that's where they really thrive. So, what size system do we need? It really depends on the size of your home, how much you want to, if you live in a smaller home, maybe you just need one head and you can call it good. The sizes typically come in 12,000 BTUs, 18,000 BTUs, and 24,000 BTUs. And 24,000 is kind of a pretty standard the size. It's sort of a larger size, but I'm pretty sure that's what Linda has in her home, is a 24,000 BTU system. And that's pretty powerful. But any installer that you have come out is going to be able to size your heating system when they visit your home. So they'll be able to tell you, okay, well, given the size and the square footage of your home, this is how much you can, should reasonably expect to use for an installation to make it as efficient and as good as possible for your home. So in a lot of cases, just one head is enough, and that's all you really need. Linda, did you say the size of your home and your system?
Yeah, it was a 2-ton, in other words, 24,000 BTU system.
Yeah.
One head out, one indoor head, one outdoor unit.
Yeah. So now we kind of get into the incentives here, and the incentives can be a little bit complicated. I'll just add to at this point that the incentives are sort of always changing. The rebates are always changing. Numbers are often changing pretty rapidly. New legislation has just been passed at the federal level that could cause all these numbers to completely get thrown for a loop, and we may have a whole new system of incentives that become available. So while we don't have a perfect system in place for the incentives, there are some that are currently around that can help make this a little bit more affordable. So it really depends on where you are. I know that most people here are in Lake Forest Park, so we'll try and keep it mostly on that subject. But if you do happen to live in Seattle, and you're replacing an oil furnace, then the Office of Sustainability has made a $1,500 incentive available for people who want to buy down the cost of switching to a ductless heat pump in Seattle. I don't believe that there is any incentive in Seattle for if you're switching specifically off of electric baseboard heat. However, if you are in PSE territory and they're your utility, they're your electric utility, then you can either have a 800 is for is the standard, and 1600 is for income qualified households who want to replace an electric baseboard with a ductless heat pump. So, if you're in Seattle, you have this option if you're switching off of oil, and for PSE, you have 800 or 1600, depending on your financial situation, if you're switching off of electric baseboard heat. And if you do have Seattle City Light as your utility, then you also, if you have $300 to $600 that's going to installers when they purchase a ductless heat pump. Now, this is important because what that means is that, the installers are getting a rebate in the form of, $300 to $600 from Seattle City Light. They are not required to then pass that along to you. So that could be something that you really want to make sure you're asking installers when you're talking to them about, if you're getting more than one bid, which we strongly recommend getting more than one bid, just so that you're comparing apples and apples, you want to ask them, now, you're getting a rebate from City of Seattle, Seattle City Light. Are you passing that along to the customer, me, or are you not passing that along to the customer? Because they might say like, oh, well, I'm cutting you a deal, but they're not necessarily passing along some of those rebates. So it's just an important consideration when you're talking to your contractor about what the financing looks like for your project. And forgive me if I do say solar installer. I'm so used to talking about solar installers that I sometimes slip and will forget that I'm talking about ductless heat pumps instead of solar installations. So I apologize in advance. These are some very, very rough numbers because it can totally vary by your income, by the size of your home. But this is just kind of a snapshot of what you might be paying. The green is the out-of-pocket portion, and then the gray is this the rebate size. So in example one here, and these do not, by the way, cover electrical work. So, that can be $300 to $600 on average. And so, your installer might ask you to talk to an electrician that can give you a quote before signing up to get a ductless heat pump. Or, you might just choose to use your own electrician, but either way, you might need to upgrade your electrical circuit to make sure that you have enough bandwidth to be able to support a system like this. So in example one, this is a single head system for a smaller home, and the rebate is $600, which means that you would probably be paying out of pocket $4,400 for that system. For a larger home that has multiple heads, you could be paying upwards of $700 or $7,200, and you might get a rebate of like $500. And those rebates vary because the rebates are sort of constantly varying, and it's an important to just make sure that you know exactly what you can get for your installation as you're before you jump into it. And your installer should be able to tell you exactly what you need to do. So that leads me to my next thing, which
Daniel.
is, oh yeah.
It's Mark again. Before you leave that topic, there is a point raised in the chat of somebody who talks about a two-head installation that cost $18,000, or was she heard it cost $18,000. Can you imagine what would account for that?
That seems very high. That's about double what we usually see for a two-head installation. So just as a little perspective, Spark Northwest does big Energize campaigns where we help big groups of people in especially low-income communities all go make a switch to ductless heat pumps at the same time. And so we end up seeing a lot of costs for what it would take to heat a big variety of homes. So we feel fairly confident that if you're looking at a cost that's more than double that 7,200 number, that does seem exorbitant. I don't know, Linda, if you want to weigh in on that, but we like to put those numbers out there just so people kind of have a sense of what's right. Now, at the same time, I will also say, I don't know, Linda, do you want to jump in on that, or what do you think? No? Okay. The other thing that I would just add too is that, you know, we're using the numbers that we've had over the last, you know, X years of doing these energized projects. At the same time, there's this big supply chain problem, and we know a lot of ductless heat pump installers are backed up, are unable to get supply at the moment. I think that could also be contributing to rising prices. I don't know that it would be contributing enough to more than double what we anticipate for a system that size. So, you know, I do expect that they are getting more expensive, but I don't think they're getting that much more expensive.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And the assumption on the number of heads for the 7,200 is like at least a 2-head household. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just seeing some of these. So, you know, as you are looking for contractors, and you probably, like we said, definitely try and get more than one bid, like 2 bids ideally. You can go to this really great website that's going to help you find a installer in your area. So if you're looking for a qualified installer, check out the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance Going Ductless website. It's goingductless.com. Really easy. And you just sort of plug in your zip code, and they'll be able to spit out a bunch of folks that they recommend for you. Spark Northwest does not personally recommend. We don't recommend people in particular because we work with so many different installers. We never want to put our finger on the scale for any one installer, especially when we have them doing competitive bidding processes within some of our other programs. So, you know, but this is a really good website for finding an a couple installers that can come by and give you an estimate. So I just wanted to add, you know, before we jump into the Q&A portion here, just want to add a little bit more information. So there's the goingductless.com website for folks that are interested in, you know, finding a good contractor. If you do have any follow-up questions, definitely reach out to me. My email is daniel@sparknorthwest.org. And if you want to get involved with People for Climate Action, just visit peopleforclimateaction.org. And, you know, I'm sure they would love to have more folks. Mark, I'm sure would love to have more people on the team to help out. And, you might just think about like what you want for your energy system. Do you want to completely replace your energy system? Do you just want to, displace some of your current heat and add a, sort of a supplemental solution? It's, and don't be deterred by installers that tell you that fossil gas is cheaper than a heat pump. It's only cheaper to them, but then you're stuck paying the bills, and you suffer from increased carbon emissions and all the other negative effects of using fossil fuels. But you may get some folks who say like, oh, well, it's cheaper to do fossil gas, and the truth is that long term it's going to be cheaper for you to go with ductless. So that's it. This is a picture of me, which I guess you haven't seen enough of me today. So I just wanted to put this up with my contact information and everything. But why don't we jump into the question and answer portion? And I haven't been tracking the chat too much. So Mark, if you have anybody that you want to get in there, Linda and I will try and answer your questions to the best of our abilities here.
I have been following the question, the info in the chat, and I think a lot of them have been answered as you've gone through. It might be that if there's people who feel their question has not been answered, maybe we should take down the screen share and ask people to use the raise hand function.
Sure.
If your question has not been answered, that's under reactions at the bottom of your screen, and you can raise your hand and we can get to you. So you can see them as well as I can, right?
Yeah. Daniel? So why don't we go with Iris?
Hi there. Thank you. So I have about a 1,600 square foot house, and it's on basically 2 levels with a little half level for a bedroom loft at the top. And that's not, that's not including the basement. And I have a duct, a forced gas furnace with ducts.
Mhm.
So any recommendations? I mean, since I have ducts and it's a big house and the heating system is not terribly terrific. It's cold in the winter. I mean, I turn the heat up to 70, 71. And in the summer, I don't have air conditioning. So,
Right.
and since I have ducts, what would you recommend?
Well, I'll let Linda weigh in on this too, but it does sound like since you're basically talking about 3 levels of your home,
Mhm.
I think that you're probably going to get more use out of a ducted heat pump because you're going to be able to get your hot and cold air to your various different levels a little bit more easily. Ductless heat pumps are fantastic, but they really do tend to work a little better with like an open floor plan. So if you're in more of like a Rambler or something like that, that might be a slightly more, a slightly better option. But if you want to make sure that you're getting heat upstairs and downstairs and you don't necessarily want to install multiple heads, then, a ducted heat pump can be a good option for that. I think
Right.
16,000 square feet is about, 1,600 square feet is about the size of Linda's home too. Linda, is that right?
That's right. Yes.
So with a ducted heat pump, I don't have to have the heads, which, I personally find pretty unattractive. No offense, please.
Can we boot Iris out of the? No, I'm just kidding.
And also because of the way this house is built, I don't have a lot of wall space. So it'd be very interesting to, because I have a lot of windows, it'd be interesting to figure out, how to mount those things. Anyway, so with ducted heat pump, I don't have heads.
No, it's just using your existing ductwork, and you have one basically central heat pump that is connected in the same way as like your furnace is connected right now.
Thank you. And any guesstimate on cost?
For a central heat pump, Linda, any ideas on that?
It depends on, that's probably not the answer you want to hear. It depends on how they do it. In some furnaces, they can actually just switch out a heat pump power. They switch out the coil. And so now you have this heat pump heated coil in your existing furnace space. But that's, I think that in the chat, 15,000 is a good ballpark for that cost.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you.
Sarah Richards, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, thanks. I have a 1970s tri-level, and before I have forced gas with fossil gas right now, but before I look at converting to a heat pump, I want to have the house tightened up because I bet our insulation is I bet our house is a sieve. So I'm looking for a resource to get somebody who's an energy audit person or an energy advisor. And I don't want to use, say, PSEs because those don't, I'd rather do somebody who does that for a profession. Do you know where to find some of those energy audit or advisor resources?
Are you thinking of doing, new installation, new windows? Is that going to be part of it?
We might need new windows.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I want the energy audit to determine. Where am I losing the most heat? What would be the most bang for the buck in terms of efficient tightening the house up? And
yeah, I mean, finding somebody who can do an air leakage test for you and the folks that I know that do that are more at the commercial scale. So if you reach out to us afterwards, this is a good question that we should be able to answer a little better. But I can talk to some of our program staff about that and probably give you a little bit better answer of who might do residential energy audits. Because it sounds like that's really what you're looking for. And, just not for nothing, but for everyone here, we often think about, people will ask us about, solar power and energy efficiency, and energy efficiency is fantastic. But before we recommend doing anything else, we recommend reducing, if you want to like just reduce your energy bills, if you want to like reduce your impact on the planet, the best thing you can do is reduce your general energy consumption. And that's, turning down the thermostat, turning off lights when you leave a room, which is not it's not the sexiest part of the fight for, clean energy and energy efficiency, but it's definitely probably the most impactful part. And we have a lot of folks who reach out to us about solar installations, and, it's always like, well, yeah, you should definitely get on solar, but also, you really want to have a more energy efficient home, and you want to have a home that's, like you say, tightened up so that you're not wasting as much energy. So
Yeah, and also you want to do that before you get the size a new heat system.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Thanks.
definitely reach out to us. You can reach me at daniel@sparknorthwest.org, and we'll definitely follow up with you. Joni Helm.
Hi, we are new to the area. We have a ductless system that we love, and it's very energy efficient. You mentioned at the start of the program, you were going to talk about how we can self-service them. So since I am new to the area and new to the system, I thought you would give me some insight. Besides cleaning the filter, which I do religiously every month, is there anything else?
Linda, you want to? As a ductless heat pump owner?
As a ductless heat pump owner, we have cleaned the filters. You're really good. We do ours about once a season. And recently my husband went outside and actually took the outside unit. He took a scrub brush and scrubbed off the fan unit, but there's not a lot of maintenance that's needed other than making sure that the outside unit doesn't have any plants growing around it. Many of the installers do offer to come service the unit on an annual basis. So I don't know if you know who installed your unit.
Yes, it was Greenwood, and we've had them come. We've been here 2 years. We've had them come each year. But when Daniel mentioned that we could do self-service, I thought, well, maybe we could do it ourselves. But I'm not adverse to having someone come every year. So it's for everybody out there. We totally love it. I mean, it's amazing. Our heat bills, we left California with heat bills in the 400s, and now we're down to 100 something. So and that's every 2 weeks or 2 months. So it's really efficient. So I'll say goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks. Kim Anderson, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. I'm checking my hearing. I think I heard you say, Daniel, that the goingductless.com website has some helps on how to hire a contractor and who to look for in a contractor.
I think so. Mostly, I think it's just going to be able to locate the contractors that have passed muster in their area. So like when you just put in your zip code and it's going to spit out a list for you.
I see.
Yeah. And, our recommendations for what you want to look for in a contractor is, make sure that their numbers are relatively in the ballpark of what we've shown you tonight. It'll probably be a little bit more because of, just because of these external factors that I mentioned before that are probably going to be impacting that. You might, because they're so busy right now and they're not looking for business. Like I'm sure that almost every ductless heat pump installer right now has an advertising budget of 0 because there's really no need for them to be hunting out for business right now. Right. If you find somebody you like, I would recommend getting on their list because, it might take several months for them to actually install.
6 months for Greenwood.
6 months for Greenwood. Yeah.
That's what I've just heard from someone. And kind of a related question is, have you been tracking or following what the supply chain is as far as equipment? I mean, there are so many people wanting this equipment now. Is that causing delays as well?
I think that's part of what's causing the general. I mean, right now, you're definitely going to have some delays from what you would normally have in the process. We think that the increased demand is part of that, and then the supply chain issues of getting component pieces
Right.
just because of the global supply chain
Mhm.
challenges. So I think it's all sort of part and parcel of the problem. But yeah, I mean, definitely expect this to be a slightly longer process than it might otherwise have been.
Right. Okay.
Hey,
Thanks.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel, it's Mark again. Can I add a quick addendum to one of Kim's questions? The first one, when you search by zip code at that website, they include a category of installers they call master installers as well. And it's a small subset of the total number of contractors that you get a list of. And those are people that have been qualified, have been certified by that Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. They've passed certain tests and requirements, certain number of, I think 25 installations they've done at least, and a number of other factors. So that is maybe another thing to look for in that list.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. Luis Kulzer, you want to?
Yes, I'm wondering why I would put in either ducted or a ductless heat pump instead of solar.
Oh, well, solar is only going to provide you with electricity. It's not going to provide you with heating or cooling.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you have to hook the solar up to something.
Good question. Yes.
Yeah. So, if you think of your whole house as using electricity, and right now what you're doing is you're just drawing electricity from the grid. All those power lines are just pumping electricity into your house. And if you have electric heating, either in the form of a ductless heat pump or a ducted heat pump, or even baseboard heating or whatever it might be, you're just, using all that electricity. Now, in an ideal world, what you're going to do is you're going to get ductless heat pumps and you're going to smack some solar on top of your roof, and that solar is just going to feed into those ductless heat pumps, and you're going to be, making energy and using energy all within your nice little system. But then, you were talking about a much more expensive prospect.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So you have to, so doing solar is sort of a different alternative. It doesn't give you heat, it just gives you electricity.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No problem. Court Olson.
Hi, this isn't Court. This is Kate. Zoom has finally made an error. So apologies to Court out there somewhere. I have 3 quickie questions. Number 1, how many heads can go on a pump? What's the maximum distance a head can be from a pump? And are there a variety of head sizes?
I think that the answer to the last one is yes. And it would, depend probably on the size of the system that you're using. For example, if you're in a 2-ton system like Linda has, or if you have another one, you may have a smaller head size. And I'll let Linda weigh in on that too. But in terms of number of heads that can be on a single pump, Linda, do you know the answer to that off the top of your head?
No, but typically I have not seen more than 3 heads on a single pump. More like usually it's, 1 outdoor unit and 2 indoor heads, or 1-to-1. In my situation, I have 1 outdoor unit and 1 indoor head. But I can't imagine doing more than 3 indoor heads. There are some such things called a cassette, where it kind of combines the idea of a ducted and ductless. You have 1 outdoor unit and 1 head in your attic that has like 3 different tubes going to grills in the ceilings of 3 different rooms.
Yeah. And in terms of length, I don't know that there's a limit on the length, because the way that, we talked about the problem with ductwork is that, it's a long place that you're losing, as you're pumping air through, you couldn't be losing a lot of that heat. The tubing that you use for ductless heat pumps is actually got a fluid that is hot or cold, so you can retain a lot more of your energy that way when you're traveling it over a distance. So I don't think there's a limit on how far it has to be from the head, although installers may have certain specifications that they want to do, which again, you want to bring up with the installer when you're talking to them about a quote, because,
Well,
they
for
may have.
instance,
Oh,
Yeah,
go
with
ahead.
Energize, we get a standard, you can get 15 feet of refrigerant line with the regular cost, and then it's like $10 a foot for every foot beyond 15 feet away from the outdoor head to the indoor unit.
Yeah. And I'll also just say that some installers, you know, they buy in bulk from the manufacturers, so they may have a particular technology that they want to use, and they'll probably all say it's the best one, but you know, so you might just want to be clear, like, okay, you're going to be installing Mitsubishi, or you know, whatever your other options might be. Mitsubishi kind of seems like sort of the standard, but you know, just knowing in advance like what technologies they actually have and are that they get, you know, it can be, we run into that with solar installers too, where they have like a particular kind that they like to use. So I think we still have some time. So Mary Kay, do you want to
yeah, I'm wondering if you ever have to change the refrigerant that's in the system is one question. And then the second is there anything regarding coming up in the future regarding the head itself and newer heads that might be smaller?
I don't think you have to ever change the refrigerant. You know, you don't change the refrigerant, you know, in your refrigerator. So it's probably not likely that you're gonna, you know, unless it sprung a leak, maybe. I guess I could see being a situation in which you might run into trouble, but I've never heard of that happening. And these things are warranted for, I don't know, Linda, what was yours warranted for?
15 years.
15 years, yeah. And you know, we expect they can last more than 20 years. There's, you know, 20-year-old ductless heat pumps that are still around today. And that I think is probably fairly common. So I think you're unlikely to have any problems with the refrigerant. And then the second part of your question was about if there's going to be changes in the size. I couldn't say what manufacturers are going to be coming out with. I do think these are going to become more popular in the States. And I think that's going to probably lead to more variety, especially if we start producing them domestically more. So, you know, but I would also I would caution too that, you know, we get this in, you know, people often ask us in the solar space about like, what, you know, is there something new coming? Because I don't want to like invest in this before. And the only thing I can say is that I've never met somebody who, whether they installed solar or an energy efficiency upgrade, that wished that they'd waited. Like almost everybody I've ever met, whether it's installing solar, ductless heat pumps, just wishes they'd done it sooner. And I think that's kind of just the testament to it. It's like, you know, it's not like iPhones where they're going to drop the next one that's like going to have all the cool features. The next, you know, I think the technology is good. It's going to last for a really long time. It's the safe bet to install now, I guess, is the kind of, but, you know, but maybe your consideration is aesthetic. Like, can I get a smaller, less, you know, less obtrusive thing in the home, you know? And I would talk to the installer about it and say like, hey, you know, what are my options for this? Is there something that's a little more recessed? And they might have some other solutions for that.
Thank you.
Sure. Ann Newcomb.
Hey, thanks, Daniel.
Sure.
So we have a Mitsubishi ductless split system, which we love. We've had it for years. Well, lately, I've been a little bit concerned about the refrigerant, not necessarily just in mine, but in general, as I'm reading articles from Inside Climate News. So I know that we're working to decrease the greenhouse gas potency of refrigerants. Is Spark working to get labels to help people realize that it's a good idea not to mess with the lines and, you know, to be careful that it is a very potent greenhouse gas?
Well,
Ecology is working a little bit on that, but because heat pumps aren't they only leak about 1% according to Ecology. So it's rare to leak, you know, it's usually like catastrophic. And that doesn't usually happen with heat pumps. But I, as a climate change activist, still am now concerned about it now that I know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about warning labels, just to let people know, be careful?
I mean, I will just say that, if there's any, oh, Linda, you wanna weigh in on this?
Yeah, I thank you for that, because I think that's one really good reason why people should not install their own ductless heat pump. And in fact, you need a refrigeration license to do this because you're handling these refrigerants. And I know that the newer refrigerants are going to be more and more climate friendly, but you're absolutely right. The overall impact, even with our old fashioned, not so great, potent greenhouse gas refrigerant, it's going to be a net climate positive because you're using so much less energy to heat your home. But absolutely, people should treat these, and that's a great idea to get a little sticker. I hadn't thought of that. So
Oh, sticker. That's a great idea.
I thought that's what you said.
Yeah.
A label. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed mine is not labeled, but yeah, sticker.
Well,
good idea.
yours is one nice little lawsuit away from getting labeled forevermore. So just putting that out there too. If anyone wants to take on that, if anyone here is particularly litigious, that could be a really good way. Things get labeled like that as soon as lawsuits start popping up. So just putting that out there into the world, Linda's shaking her head. She's like, I can't take this guy anywhere.
I want to, Daniel, it's Mark again. I want to see, I thought I saw Julius was trying to raise his hand a few minutes ago. Did you have a question, Julius?
Yes, I do. I was trying to figure out how to raise the hand in the chat, but it didn't work. My question is, we have a electric wall heaters throughout the house. We have about 2,700 square feet. And our bill is around $400 every two months, Eileen? Yeah. Every 2 months. So what's your recommendation for taking out the wall heaters? There's one in each room.
Who's your utility?
City of Seattle.
Sorry?
Is your utility?
Yeah, Seattle City Light. Yeah, we're definitely the highest in the neighborhood. It's all electric. The whole house is electric.
Right. So, it depends on what, I guess, what your motives are. I think like long term, you're probably going to benefit from a ductless heat pump, especially if you can keep it low to just the one head and the one outdoor unit. That could be really good. You're already paying for electricity, so you're not fuel switching. You're just going to be using the same electricity that you're using for your. Are they baseboards or is it like a built-in wall?
Baseboard.
It's baseboard. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would always recommend, going with the most high efficiency system, because long term it's probably going to work out, but it is going to be an initial, upfront outlay of cost that is, it's going to have that, if you get one head, one system, then you're looking at like nearly $5,000 out of pocket. But long term, you could save, if you save $300 or $400 a year, and your system lasts for 20 years, you can see that over time, it'll completely pay back for itself, but it might be a little bit of a slower process.
Yeah, we have everything is electric in the house, so it really generates a lot of electricity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could I suggest we go to Connie Barnes next? She hasn't asked a question yet.
Sure.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to go back to a question or a comment that I think Linda made about kind of going back to the aesthetics or the non-aesthetics of the larger units that are used. If you had, she mentioned something about having one outdoor unit and then one head in the attic with 3 tubes.
Yes.
3 grills. Would that be like a little vent then? Like it could even be a ductless vent? or a ducted vent?
It would be more like a ducted vent. And those systems are called cassette systems, sort of like cassette tapes. I don't know why, but they're called cassettes. And then it would be like, you wouldn't have that funny, well, you know, the fact is I've had this, I was worried about the aesthetics too. And when I, you know, you can see it right up there. After you've had it in your house for a few weeks, you don't see it anymore. But I realized that, but yes, so you could look into the cassette system, because then you wouldn't have a head like that. You would instead have, if you had space in your attic, there would be the central unit that would then be sending, it would be more like a ducted system that was sending hot air, blowing hot air through different, usually flexible tubes to the ceiling of a room where you would have a kind of a grill.
Mhm. And the attic would not have to be finished.
Nope.
It'd be like had blown in insulation and all that.
Right. It would, you know, no one would ever see the unit. The attic could be, you definitely should have the insulation in your attic, but it's just it's behind the scenes. And so the only part that's visible to the conditioned space would be the little grill in the ceiling so it would be much more like having a ducted system.
Mhm. Could you use your ducted system if it was on the floor with that setup?
Yeah, you wouldn't call, then in that case, it's not, no, I don't think so. Then it would be a ducted heat pump.
Yeah.
A
Connie, do
central.
you already have ductwork in your home?
Yes, we do.
Well, so then, yeah, you know, you might just, I don't know what the cost of a cassette system is it might be comparable to getting a, you know, ducted heat pump, but I suspect that a ducted heat pump might be slightly more affordable of an option. And then you're using your existing, you know, ductwork, but you do lose, you lose some of the efficiency.
You would lose efficiency.
But as my favorite comedian, well, as a comedian I once heard, who I think now might actually be in trouble, so maybe I shouldn't even quote this guy, but he said, let me take my second favorite option. And the second favorite option, I think, is the ducted heat pump, you know, as opposed to a ductless heat pump.
Huh, okay.
Ducted heat pump is still very efficient. There's just some efficiency loss because ducts inherently are leaky, but the system you have now has those ducts, so it's not more inefficient.
Do
And
you know anything about the efficiency of hot water baseboards?
Like the radiant.
Yeah, well, I guess, is it radiant? Yeah, I guess it is radiant. It heats up inside a little, like a little.
How do you heat the water for that's where the efficiency.
Electric.
Okay, so is electric resistance heat is 100% efficient, and heat pumps tend to have a coefficient of performance of 250 to 300%.
Oh,
So,
okay. That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Do we have time for a few more? Should we ask Bill Wester?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the ducting. If your ducting is located in areas that's already heated, then it does not lose any energy. So you want to know whether it's, you know, like if it's in an unheated crawl space underneath, then you're going to lose heat. But if it's inside between two floors, then you won't.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. For example, my ductwork is all under the house. And, you know, when I crawl around under the house, I can see all the ductwork, but it's, you know, but that area is not heated. So I lose a lot of heat by virtue of that just being cold down there. But that's a really good point, Bill. Thank you. Elaine, do you have a question?
Yeah, you know, I was told by some people out where I live that heat pumps are not efficient and they don't work that well. I had a heat pump years ago in a different house, and when I turned on the air conditioning, it wasn't particularly cooler. Not that I like air conditioning, but could you comment on that? Because I'm hearing numbers that say that heat pumps are far more effective. Their point was that in the Pacific Northwest, it doesn't get cold enough or hot enough, or I don't know what their point was.
Right. Well, I don't want to say I don't know that they're incredibly efficient and they're incredibly effective. We'll just say that. And 20 years ago they might not have been quite so good, but now they're very, very efficient. And like in terms of cooling, I can attest to them getting temperatures down to very cold, which from my experience in the Sichuan province of China, when it's July and you are in a room that is got only one little head that is pumping out cold air, it's a lifesaver. It's and I just wish that I'd had one this last summer here in where I am, because they're very effective at keeping things cool. And in terms of heat, there are some shortcomings in terms of you have basically your heat coming from one central place if you have one head, but because they actually blow that heat through the air, you're actually getting a much wider swath of your home than say if you had even with baseboard heat or whatever. I think they're pretty good, and that might just be somebody had an old unit or a home that was not really a good fit for that. I can't say what maybe motivated that particular opinion, but now, I mean, they're wildly popular. So
Thank you.
Sure.
And it sounds like it'd be very difficult to get an installer out for months and months and months to actually have a conversation about what's best for my house. Is it okay if I contact you and get some more advice?
Yeah,
For
of course.
example, that website with the installer, it doesn't work out here in Snoqualmie. It just says, ask me what your utilities. Well, I know who.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely we'd be happy to talk to you about it more. And also you can talk, I would recommend also talking to your utility too, and just seeing who, and I guess your utility is probably PSE, but they might have some installers that they, prefer for this kind of thing. Yeah, but we're happy to try and help you find somebody that would come out there, and I don't want to discourage people from thinking that installers are not going to come out for months and months. I suspect that their salespeople can still get out pretty quick. It just might be a little bit of a longer time frame. But the sales departments, they can staff up really quick, perhaps faster than the installation part of the company can. So not to be too, too cynical about it, but I do think you'll probably be able to get somebody out there. So, but we're happy to talk about that offline with you too. Marlene, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. That was my cat. I have actually 5 questions. Would you like me to quickly go through each one, or?
Sure. Or, if you prefer to just throw them in an email too, that's also totally fine.
Okay, well, we'll try and you tell me when.
Sure.
Okay, I was curious about, you talked about, so we have electric furnace that puts out the natural gas, uses that, and there was no rebate on that type of system. That's what I could tell from your chart. Is that correct?
As far as I know, I didn't look into what, because we're, not typically trying to help folks get onto, there may be, PSE may have some, incentives to get people on natural gas, but
I doubt it. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then if somebody has large bay, we have a 2-level large bay windows everywhere that most of them are double pane. Is there any issue with that? Somebody else, I think, brought it up about large windows. Is there inefficiency to that?
In terms of the heat loss?
Yeah. Yeah. To use the system, would it be?
Not more than you're going to have with any other heating system. I mean, your energy and heating loss that you have from having those big windows, that's the same whether you're using fossil gas or whatever. So I think that it's
just a wash. That's not anything to be concerned about. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I was wondering if Linda would mind telling us what she paid for her system and when she bought it, just to get a ballpark kind of idea.
Yes, I bought my system, gosh, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago through Island Ductless. I live on Whidbey Island. They're a fantastic company, shameless plug, but I don't know if they service folks on the mainland. And it was on the order of $4,000 before the there was a modest rebate from Puget Sound Energy. And we were on a system where we had actually been heating with a combination of propane. We don't have gas service out here. So we were on propane and using some electric space heaters. And, and so we got a small rebate from PSC because we were no longer going to be using those electric space heaters. So in the end, it came out to more like 3,500 for this. Again, it was a 2-ton, that is 24,000 BTU outdoor unit and 1 head indoors.
I see. Okay, thank you. And then just 2 other quick, has anybody done, like they do with solar, how long does it take you to pay back what you've paid out, you know, the return value on it? Has there been any study in that regard?
I'm sure you could do, oh, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, it saves us, well, because we were on, it depends what your fuel is. So we were on propane, so we're saving like $600 a year. And so, you know, it's gonna pay back in about 6 years. If you're on electric, you're probably not paying as much as I was. Or if you're on natural gas, you're not paying as much. And it might take a long time to quote unquote pay back. But of course, in that case, what you're really gaining is that you're not having to burn fossil fuels.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay. And then I don't know if the person is still on that was asking about an energy audit person to come out, which I just wanted to share with her that my husband figured out an infrared thermometer, and you can walk around your house and see actually where it's cooler and where you need to kind of do something about that area. So maybe that's just a start to let her know how to fix things before going in, to this, installing the system. I wanted to thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I'm just starting to learn, and it was a terrific presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
It sounds like we're winding down.
I think so. I'm not seeing any other hands up, but if anyone else wants to jump on.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dan. I just wanted to say to Elaine, on that website, when you scroll down to a certain point, you enter your zip code. And I don't know if you got to that point or not, but I don't think it requires that you enter your utility. So that might be worth taking another look at, because once you get your zip code in, then it generates this list of contractors. Anyway, I don't know, Amy, are you still here? And did you want to say anything as we close? But I want to thank you, Daniel and Linda, for being here tonight and for the great presentation.
Of course, thanks for having us.
It's been great. It's been great for us to learn about Spark Northwest, and we look forward to working with you some more in the future, perhaps.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Check us out. We've got a great newsletter that goes out, sparknorthwest.org. We're a fantastic nonprofit. Check us out.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to Daniel and Mark and and Linda and all the people for climate action, Lake Forest Park. And just for anybody who does want to connect with us for any of those other events, everything we do is free. It's all there for you. I just want you to help be able to find us and come and join us for a future program. So there's our information to come and join us for some of those events, either online or in person. Thank you again, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Good night, all.
Good night.